who really can't communicate, where in fact, true to all political Islamists, and I'm not talking here about the cannon fodder suicide bombers, but true to all ideologues, they are modern. They are entirely modern because their ideology is modern. It didn't exist before the 1920s. And they know they are a product of modernity.
When you say infiltrating the army or infiltrating the upper echelons of the administration in a country, is there a fear that that's happening here in Pakistan? Or do you know that that's happening?
I know it's happening. I played a part in setting up Hizb ut-Tahrir here in 1999. I left from the UK, and it's another thing for your viewers to consider that yes, Pakistan has its own extremism problems, but as we know, Britain has its own extremism problems as well. And yes, Pakistan may be exported to Britain, say Jamaat Islami, but Britain exported to Pakistan Hizb ut-Tahrir. There's a two-way process of radicalization coming in both directions. And so it's not good to finger point. But I know that because I came here and played my part in setting up Hizb ut-Tahrir in 1999. The idea was that Pakistan had tested its nuclear bomb in 98, and our intention was to seize power and have at our disposal this nuclear bomb for the caliphate. There are serious efforts that have been engaged in, Hizb ut-Tahrir has been engaged in since then to infiltrate the army and the upper echelons of Pakistani society.
You're watching the Dawn News special. We're going to take a very quick break here. After the break, I'll be speaking to Maajid Nawaz about how he got involved with Hizb ut-Tahrir, the way the group operates, and what his experiences have been. Stay tuned to Dawn News. Let's talk about your experience specifically with Hizb ut-Tahrir. One member has called it a thought revolution. Is that how you found it to be when you were being recruited?
Yes, when I was being recruited I was 16, and to emphasize again, I was ignorant of Islam. I did not know Arabic, I did not know anything about traditional classic Islam. I was born and raised in the UK, and it for me was a revolutionary creed that I used to solve questions of identity that I had, quite poignant questions I had facing me in the UK, including facing violent racist attacks against me as a teenager by an organized minority of racist thugs. So their ideology for me was a form of revolution and identity and resistance against mainstream society, to give me confidence to assert my own identity and to define myself and know who I was. However, you know, that can be said for the same for the growth of totalitarian ideologies in Europe after the collapse of empires. So after World War I, it's no coincidence that Europe witnessed the same rise in totalitarian ideologies, because when empires collapsed, people needed to find an alternative identity. Nazism emerged, fascism emerged, and communism emerged. And the same when the Ottoman Empire collapsed for sort of Muslims. They needed new identities. And to resist against colonialism, they first adopted socialism. And then from Arab socialism, Baathism, it developed into Islamism. As I said, the founder of Hizb ut-Tahrir used to be an Arab socialist.
So what do they teach you and how do they guide you?
Well, there is, that's the other thing. We have to start recognizing this as the growth of an ideology, not simply the growth of religious fundamentalism. Because you could be a religious fundamentalist yet not have political ambitions. Simply like the Amish community in America. Someone who's extremely literalist, but doesn't wish to impose his literalism upon the whole of society. This is the growth of an ideology, and it attracts people that may not be fundamentalists. It attracts people that could even be moderate in their religious interpretations, yet they want to impose that moderate interpretation on the whole of society. And the key thing is looking for what is this ideology that they're teaching people. And it rests upon certain core principles. The lack of recognizing nation states, the lack of recognizing democracy or any systems except the one that they've defined from their interpretation of Sharia. It provides a certain framework through which we look at the world. And so the Iraq War and the invasion of Iraq, rather than being seen as simply for oil or interests or a conflict of interests, is seen as part of a cosmic struggle of Islam versus non-Islam. And every conflict is explained in that way. And the sad thing is that there is ample evidence for them to abuse to back up this theory, whether it be Palestine, Chechnya, Bosnia, Kashmir, Iraq, Afghanistan, the list goes on. And it provides anecdotal evidence to back up this theory that Islam is in some real global struggle against non-Islam, which suits their agenda.
How then did you manage to break free from that mindset? Because it is a mindset, it's a way of thinking and it's a way of life.
Yeah. So I was, as I said, I was imprisoned in Egypt and I had a long time to study. I had 4 years to reflect inside myself. By that time I'd learnt Arabic, and I had access to classical Islamic sources, and I had access to people I could study with who had been graduates of the University of Azhar. I also had, uniquely, in prison with me, former senior jihadists. As I said, the assassins of Sadat, the founders of Al-Jama'ah al-Islamiyya, formerly Egypt's largest terrorist organization, and also members of Al-Jihad al-Islami, which is the group that Ayman al-Zawahiri used to belong to. These were all in the same prison with me, and on top of that, there were liberal political activists who had been imprisoned for questioning Mubarak's rule. And that mixture of political prisoners, with my studies and with my reading of Arabic and the books, led to a very rich and vibrant atmosphere where we were able to discuss. Most of those former jihadists had renounced already jihadism. Because they'd been in prison for 20 years, they had a long time to think. And it was through their experience and their hindsight that I was able to then, through engagement and discussion, reconsider a lot of the principles that I had held were sacred. Amnesty International also adopted me as a prisoner of conscience, and that helped a lot in even just emotionally in feeling that there are people out there who do care about human rights, and that no one deserves to go through torture and imprisonment simply because of his ideas, even if we don't agree with his thinking. It showed me there are people out there who are sincerely committed to the human rights cause. Because remember,
even if they're not Muslim or Pakistani.
Of course. Because remember, one of the biggest, the large propaganda by Islamists is that the West are hypocritical in their adherence to democracy and human rights, so we don't want it. Now that does ring true in many instances, such as Guantanamo, such as the torture in Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo. But with organizations like Amnesty International, it showed me there still are people out there that are trying their hardest to be consistent to those principles.
Hizb ut-Tahrir in the UK is notorious for recruiting through colleges, schools and universities. And you're actually in Pakistan to tour universities and speak to young people, aren't you?
That's right. I've organized a tour of around 25 universities in every province. And the idea is to address people who are still making up their minds on these issues, to do exactly what we've just discussed, to say to them there's nothing wrong with criticizing this modern ideology. It's not consistent with Islam, and you're not bad Muslims if you do so. And the hope is to empower them and to facilitate and encourage them to work and network around democratic, tolerant, pluralistic principles.
Are you hoping to encourage then, because you are going to only be in Pakistan for a short amount of time and you'll be back in the UK, are you hoping to find people like yourself who then can carry on with this work?
I've already found them. We're hoping to help organize them, help to guide them in their thinking. We put our skills at their disposal. I mean, we set up, personally, even in my case, I contributed to setting up HD here. I know who their leadership are. They're British Pakistanis still in this country. I know how they work, I know how they think, and we've challenged them to debate many times and they haven't come forward. And also, in Denmark, I did the same thing, and the years of experience I'm putting at their disposal to say, learn from my bad decisions, and here is the way to avoid being attracted by these groups, and these are the arguments, these are the ideas, these are their inconsistencies, so we can equip them. So that not only do they not join these groups, but they help others to make their minds up in the right way as well.
Now, you mentioned that Hizb ut-Tahrir is active in Pakistan. They have their own manifesto. How much do you think they are operational at a university or college level, or is it everyone and anyone?
I was speaking to somebody who's in a very responsible position in Pakistani society, involved in media. And he said to me that, thankfully, his type of persons from his type of society are not involved in this. And it's rather people that go to madrasas. And I had to politely correct him and say, actually, don't be so sure. As you know from the experience of Hizb ut-Tahrir in the 90s in the UK, they recruited from some of the best universities. LSE, King's, Cambridge, Oxford. I mean, I, at 17, was recruiting people from Cambridge University. Then I went on to SOAS and the LSE and did a master's in the LSE. Now, these are some of the top universities in the world. Here again in Pakistan, for over 10 years, they've been focusing on the private English medium universities. That is the caliber of person they're looking to recruit, and they've had some certain level of success amongst that type of person. When I came in '99, I enrolled in Punjab University, and we were recruiting not just in Punjab University, but in all the English medium schools we were targeting. That was, of course, easy for us because we spoke English. Now, if you imagine somebody 10 years ago who came to Pakistan, as people did come with me from England, who were doctors and engineers or professors in universities, these are real people that came with me from Hizb ut-Tahrir, and they came to live here, and they meet somebody who's a student, and he's a professor from a university in the UK. He's going to be impressed.